we can call it a resurgence in New York. And hey, more power to him. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. We'll see what happens. Look, moving on, Tina. Some other news that is shocking, but maybe not really that shocking. Trey Hendrickson is looking to get a new contract. He was making about almost 17 mil over the last couple years. Uh, and the Bengals don't have that much money. You and I reported on this last week that the Bengals were convinced they were going to pay all three, but apparently right now they've only just paid the two, which is the wide receivers. Chase got 40, essentially got a contract with about 40 mil average a year. Will get 112 million guaranteed, and then Higgins got an extension that put him at 115 mil, getting it fully guaranteed over the next, giving some of it fully guaranteed over the next couple years. What that does is it leaves Hendrickson as the odd man out, who, like I said, was making about 17. He's trying to make upwards to 30. We've talked about his position and how that price tag's definitely raised up with Miles Garrett and everything recently. So apparently the team offered him the opportunity to be traded elsewhere, but if he doesn't get traded, he wants to stay and make that money, but he is willing to sit out this season if in fact he does not get that money. Look, I'm gonna send this to you,
They
Tina.
can't pay him. If
Yeah,
he
I
wants
know.
30 million, they've only got 20 million in cap.
Right,
They
right.
can't
And
pay
so
him.
that's an issue. That's an issue for them. But at the same time, it's like every team nowadays needs a quality, a really good edge rusher. Hendrickson over the last couple of years has averaged about 17 sacks over the last. He did 35
Mhm.
sacks in the last 2 years. The guy is worth it, but to your point, they can't pay him. What do you do in this situation?
I mean, he's got to be willing to take the discount double check discount.
Hmm. Hmm.
He's got to be willing to do the Patrick Mahomes or Bradley or Brady situation where you're willing to take less and backload your contract with incentives and things that get paid later that don't count to the cap.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they can't pay him and he's sitting out.
yeah. I
Now,
look. It's
here's the thing. I there's going to be teams that
oh
will
yeah,
pay for him.
yeah,
So essentially, that's what Cincy is saying is you're gone. We
yeah.
can't do it.
I think they're holding out. They got the two things because Burrow's in charge over there, so he wanted his
Yeah.
receivers paid for it. They got that stuff taken care of, and now I think what they're doing is they're kind of holding out. And we talked about this kind of off camera about looking towards the draft and some of these guys. Free agency is dying down, so a lot of guys, a lot of teams are looking towards the draft, seeing what they can do in the draft, and then as we get closer to the next season, maybe these guys will take a pay cut. Maybe these guys will take their chances elsewhere and do it like that. The Bengals don't want to let him go. Hendrickson wants to stay, but you have got like if the money is not meeting, somebody's gonna be the odd man out, and it looks like it might be Hendrickson. But
Yeah.
let me ask you, if he decides to stay and sit out, how would you feel about that? Like, how would you feel if he was on your team and he said, "They're not paying me what I want. I'm not going elsewhere. I'm just going to sit out this whole year." How would I like? How is that legally? Can you do that if you're under
Yeah.
contract?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would
I
you think?
mean, it's a contract. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's a business for them too. If
Yeah.
the owners want to claim that it's a business and they can do this and that and they can trade people whenever they want to, the players have a right to say it's business and I have the right to get my back.
Yep.
And that's what it comes down to. I mean, here, this is the thing, and this is what I think is going on is since Burrow has come to the Bengals, they've had a phenomenal offense and their defense has been just average.
Yeah. They
Hendricks
played
was
good when they need
probably
to.
the best. Now, there are other like teams have pulled people from their defense and stuff,
Hmm.
and there are that I'm forgetting half of them in my head right now. But Hendricks has turned out to be the one that's been good, but he's been under his rookie contract, so
Hmm.
they haven't had to have a great defense in order to um, be in the running because they've had Burrow slinging the ball. The
Hmm.
only reason they didn't, I mean, that game between us and them, their defense showed up all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it all now. in our defense, I will say it was because it was a bad call in terms of whether they were going to go to overtime or not, but neither here nor there. The game is over. We lost. We still made it into the playoffs because I love it. Like,
the little jab right there.
Did you hear the scuttle about it? Like, the reason why, like, the Chiefs wanted us in the playoffs.
Right. That's what I heard.
Joe, because Joe is the only one that's ever beat them.
Right.
So, but I mean, that's just kind of the way that it goes. The thing is about the draft with defensive ends is you don't find a starting defensive end in the draft.
Very seldom you do. Right.
He might make second team to give one of your edges a break every couple of plays, because not everybody's like freaking Vaughn, and even Vaughn would come out for a play or two, even at his prime. So you're not going to find his replacement in your draft. That guy is going to be his replacement in a couple of years. So I think Cincy's got themselves in a world of hurt, and if I was him, I'd be pissed.
Oh, he clearly
You promised me we would work this out. But I think what happened is Joe Burrow was like, hey, my rookie contract's up soon too. So if you don't get me what I want, I could go somewhere else too. And if Burrow leaves, they're done.
Yeah, see, and this is the situation we're having.
And you don't think you don't think like they're in the little war room and everything with the GM and the owners and the head coach and everything, and they're like, well, if we don't give him what he wants, well, you know what, he may not leave. And you're like, there would be teams salivating for the chance to pick up Joe Burrow.
Oh, Joe Burrow, without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Joe Burrow. Like, if we screw this up and don't give him what he wants.
But look, don't put the cart in front of the horse, because they're not going to let go of Joe. They going to keep Joe Burrow for sure. And the Bengals showed everybody that by signing his two top weapons in Higgins and Chase. So that, I think what the Bengals ended up saying was, this is where we stand. We are an offensive team. We're trying to solidify our line. We've got our wide receivers now. We got our quarterback, and we know he has to get paid. Hendrickson just seems like the odd man out in this situation, and it's unfortunate. And I do think other teams would, if they have the cap, or even if they don't, they'll move some things aside. I think if I'm Cincinnati, I need to be looking at a potential trade. But I think they're doing what you think what you were talking about with the Burrow situation, where it's like, let's just wait, let's see what happens. Who knows what's going to happen with Hendrickson, but if he does not play this coming year, I think we're looking at another 8-9, 9-8 season from them, because they weren't good early on.
I can think of 3 teams in the AFC West that could do with another edge rusher.
Do they have the money for it?
Raiders do.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So do the Patriots.
It would be interesting. It'd be interesting to see if they would be willing to make those
teams
moves
out there that have the money. But yeah.
And the other part about it, though, is that the Bengals have to agree to it. The Bengals have to want to see what they're getting and getting back. So while the teams might have it, they have to agree to making the move and because I don't think the Bengals don't want to get rid of him. Otherwise, they would have done like these other teams and released him or done something of that nature. They don't want to do that. But he's clearly stating, I'm not dealing. If y'all ain't paying me what I feel like I deserve.
Negotiations broke down. They could not come to an agreement, and they're not going to trade him. And they don't have to, because he's under, I believe he is still under his rookie contract. So as long as you're under your rookie contract, you don't have to trade him.
Is he? Because he was making 17.
Let me see.
I think. Yeah. Check that. We'll see.
I'm checking.
The Bengals will absolutely need him to be. Look, shout out to the people that are watching. Nicholas Rosario's in the comments. Sherry Lees is is watching. Andrew, Cameron, Deaconess L. What is going on, everybody? So glad that you guys can join us tonight on Let's Talk Football. Breaking news, talking about Trey Hendrickson, seeing will he sit out.
Oh, he signed a 1-year contract.
Okay, so he signed for what, 16?
20 million contract, including an $8 million signing bonus, $8 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of 21. His base is 15.8,
Yeah.
but he carries a cap hit of almost 19 million.
Yeah. So they're gonna try
So
to figure something out, but they don't have the money to figure. It's gonna
that's why they're not trading him, because he's still under contract for one more
Yep.
year. They're trying to renegotiate that. So
Yeah.
otherwise, if he had multi-year, he'd already have been traded or
Mm-hmm.
released.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is going to be very interesting. So we'll definitely follow this story throughout the off season, definitely into the draft and through it, and see kind of where it goes. But look, talking about somebody getting a lot of money, or somebody just biding their time, if you will. Aaron Rodgers, ladies and gentlemen, after we reported last week that the Jets released him, and so now he's a free agent. There have been conversations about him potentially doing like his predecessor Brett Favre did, and going from the Jets to the Vikings. The Vikings have come out and said JJ McCarthy's healthy. We're out of that race. So all of the rumors, you and I talked about this last week. Will Aaron Rodgers be going to the Steelers? Well, apparently the Steelers right now are looking at it where Aaron Rodgers, he might retire. So they're kind of figuring out where they stand on it. They still have Russell in house. He is willing. He's talked to the Giants. He's talked to the Browns. It's not looking like he's going in that direction. He still wants to potentially stay in Pittsburgh, but they're not going to get him this year for the 1.2 million that he got last year because the Broncos were paying his contract. They're going to have to pay him upwards to 30 mil this year, so that's still up in the air. Tina, what are your thoughts? Is he retiring? Is he going to Pittsburgh? You talked about last week about how Tomlin ain't going to put up with the Aaron Rodgers mess, and Aaron ain't going to put up the Tomlin mess. Now you got two wide receivers that are rambunctious. Is Aaron going here? Is he retired? And is this time that's taking to make this decision, is this far too long? Like, the Steelers are trying to get this thing going to next year. They don't need to wait months and months and months for you to finally make your decision. Like, what are you thoughts about this?
He's an idiot.
Yeah, there it is. But there it is. I can't, the
Okay, a
ayahuasca.
little seriousness. I'm sorry, I had to go for the joke.
Yeah.
And I don't know what again, it's an ego thing, I think, with
Mm-hmm.
him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not the player he used to be. You rupture an ACL the way he did. Kirk Cousins isn't doing any better.
Mm-hmm.
And he was never going to go to Minnesota. I don't know why anybody was spouting that kind of stuff. And
It was the Brett Favre thing. He's doing all
yeah,
the things
I
Brett Favre
know.
did.
And I'm sure he got Pat McAfee to talk about it, because those two
Mm-hmm.
are tighter than a twist tie on a bag of bread. But I just,
Like that.
the Steelers, if I was the Steelers, I'd move on. I
Yep.
would. But I don't know that they have any choice. They have to deal with the circus.
Yeah,
They have to
Mason
deal with,
Rudolph ain't gonna be it.
yeah,
You know.
no, it's not. And here's the thing: if you're his two wide receivers, fine. In his prime, absolutely would have loved to
Mm-hmm.
have worked with him. Now, I think the first time he doesn't throw somewhere, or he does something that they don't like, those two are going to be so far up his butt in the
Yes.
media, it's
Yes.
not even going to be funny.
Yeah.
And
That,
that's why, if I was the Steelers, I'd move on.
that's yeah,
Move
and that's what
on,
people are saying.
draft a guy.
Or keep
Tomlin has
Russell.
shown,
Keep Russell. Russell,
yeah,
he was 6 for 5. The Steelers went 6-5 with you guys last year. Mind you, you had injury issues on all over the field. But Russell is fine in house. He works with Tomlin. He's able to get it done. Shout out to Misador in the comments said Steelers will be stupid to pay a QB that's a bit of a cancer. And that I completely
well, that's
agree.
the problem. He is a cancer in the locker room right now.
Yeah. We
He's
can't have Aaron come in here and do this. And to your point, Aaron over the last couple years missed playoffs both years. It he it I think there was a stat of like completion percentage over over expected QBs or something like that, and he was the third. He was like third from the worst. Like the
mhm.
top three guys is Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, and Aaron Rodgers. He is not playing the caliber of football that made him a 4-time NFL MVP anymore. This is not that guy. This is Michael Jordan at the Wizards. You know what I mean? Like, he knows certain tricks of the trade that he can do, but he's not that discount double jack, let me do the belt, I own you type guy anymore. And so I think it becomes, what are you paying for? You know, are you paying for the memory of what he used to be, or are you paying for what he is now? Because he's paying for what he is now. He ain't worth 40 some odd mil. He ain't, you know, give him the vet minimum at this point.
No. And if you're going to pay him, you might as well pay Russell. Walmart welfare is gone, Steelers. You're not paying Russell for $1 million. So if there's not a lot of difference between the two of them, why don't you pay the guy? Like you said, Russell did well for them. I don't think Russell's going to win any playoffs, but you have two guys who won another Super Bowl ring, and they just for some reason have it in their head that I can do it again. I can still do it. I can play until I can't give up anymore. I do think Russell's in a little bit better situation physically. Yeah. I think Aaron, that ACL, what happened to it? It's not, in my mind, I think he's playing with pain, but I don't know because I don't have any insight into who what is said and done and all of that.
His age alone, already gives you concern just for anybody. But you have a guy that is this old and then has this type of injury. It's always going to be in the back of your mind, no doubt about it. You know what I mean? So we'll see. And on top of the fact that he has not been playing well, period. You know, injury aside, that makes only so much difference. I mean, he just already seems like he's fallen off, and it's something we all thought was going to happen eventually, and now it's coming. And then you add the injury on with it, and the drama, the whole off-season ayahuasca, going to my cave nonsense. No, that doesn't even seem like the type of quarterback that the Steelers would go after. You know what I mean? They don't want all that.
Like you said, they don't have a lot of choices at this point.
That's true too.
Tomlin has made lemonades out of lemons. Yeah. So who knows? I mean, really, but I do think that if they don't do something with either this, I mean, I've been hearing a little bit like this might be the end of Tomlin. Like this might be his last year. If he can't, if this experiment, like if they decide to go with Aaron and it blows up, would that be the end of Tomlin? Would then the ownership decide that they want to move on? I don't think they should, because Tomlin has shown what he can do, and he's
as long as you could win.
Yep.
I'm sorry,
but depends on how this all.
Look, I get it.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not normally someone that watches Steelers games, but I'm gonna sit there with my popcorn and be like, okay, wins, and Metcalf's gonna go off.
And look, I'm with you. I'm not a huge fan of Pittsburgh. I mean, they kind of, since they are a couple hours away, their fan base is trying to come into our area and they sell stuff in our stores. I don't like that, Pittsburgh. But with Tomlin, yes, he keeps winning. So it'd be stupid to let him go. I don't think they're going to bring in a guy like Rodgers that would be that type of, to Misador's words, cancer in the locker room. And it just doesn't, it wouldn't make sense to do that unless they're saying like we don't really have a choice. But then it goes back to, look, Russ, you have Russell. I would pay Russell $30 million for what he could potentially do. He didn't look terrible last year, you know? So, you know, it is what it is. We'll see. But look, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick breather, ladies and gentlemen. And this has been our breaking news portion of the show. And we're going to take a quick breather and come back to you on the other side with some good, some bad, and some ugly. And so to prep us for that, we got to shout out my partner over here, the host of the Mile High Minute. And we're going to tell you about some good, some bad, and ugly for free agency. Be right back. Love that song. Yeah. That was Mile High Minutes. My partner Tina hosts, created, gets everybody on board, even holds her peace with some of her compadres say some stuff about the playoffs. But we're not gonna get into that. I'm gonna let Tina take over right now. The good, the bad, the ugly. What you got for us, Tina?
All right, Sean, hit me with your good. What of
Hmm.
free agency? What do you think is the best move, the best team, or even a situation that you think that a team that may not have gotten a lot of accolades for the trade
Hmm.
is a good trade for them and actually makes them a better team? So, any of those.
Oh yeah. I will start. Well, first let me Ben. Shout out to Ben for watching. Sean, maybe Big Bill Belichick brings Aaron Rodgers as a starting quarterback next season. Look, we don't want Aaron Rodgers. We have one old guy in North Carolina. We don't need any more old guys coming in there playing quarterback. No, Ben, we're not doing it. Appreciate you watching, buddy. My good. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna be like Nick on Let's Talk Football, the Blitz. I'm gonna say my team. I'm gonna say talk about the best trade, Debo Samuel. Getting Debo
Mhm.
to come here, albeit I understand he might have had some injury issues. He might have, not done as great over the last couple of years, but we all know how electric he is. We all know how elite he is. But he's also not just a wide receiver, but we can also put him in the backfield, have him run. He's a tough guy, and he's close to Adam Peters. It's a big move. I'm absolutely loving that. And then also the Laramie Tunsil, so getting a number two wide receiver and then getting a starting left tackle, I think that is so beautiful. And that just shows kind of what our front office is doing. That's
Mhm.
absolutely one of my goods, because my besides the fact that yes, that is my squad, that's my team, but to see us making moves like this where we're actually looking towards the future, absolutely love it. Real quick, when Devontae Adams going to the Rams, they
Really?
make
You pulled
yeah,
mine.
all right, I'll send it to you. Go ahead. Go ahead. Take that. Because
That
that was
just
that
shows
was
like
good.
minds, like minds. Like I know it's old news that he this was before like free agency really started, but that's the one piece they really kind of needed. And pulling
Yeah.
him, getting him to come to the Rams takes them to another level. And he is he is what's the term? I know with seriously menopause brain in my head. He takes him to another level over Cooper
Yeah.
Cup.
Yeah.
He's a different kind of receiver. Now, that's is if he measures up to his
Mm-hmm.
potential.
Hmm.
Now, his potential didn't show last year because he was freaking playing for the Jets with
Yeah.
Aaron
With
Rodgers.
aforementioned Aaron Rodgers, right?
So, but yeah, that was my number. I have another one. So,
Yeah.
what do you
Go
think?
go
Anything?
no. Go ahead with your other one, so I don't steal
No,
that.
but anything to add to the Devontae thing? I should have known we both have him on our list.
And ladies and gentlemen, we talked about our bad and our ugly before the show. We didn't talk about our good, but now
No, we didn't. Well, I talked about one good. We
yeah,
had one good that I
right.
but
No, with that one, I totally agree. I mean, I am somebody that still wants to see what Cooper Cup does next year, because it baffles me that he's dropped so far in the mind of the NFL. But getting somebody like Devonte Adams and having him, pairing him with the Puka, pairing him with the Matthew Stafford,
Puka,
in like
Puka,
what you
Puka.
talked Puka, right? In what you talked about was a division that is taking a hit this past year with the lack of talent, or what San Francisco, all the
Yeah.
talent they lost, Seattle, etc. I think this is huge. I think it's hard not to say that the Rams are going to be a favorite coming out of the NFC West this coming year. Or
Yeah.
what are they? West?
One of the guys that one of the shows that I listen to, which if you're not following like the Locked On series on Spotify, they have a Locked On show for every team, but they also did like a Locked On free agency and draft and all of that. And go to Ben Cornett. What the guy said is, I don't want to hear about everybody saying the AFC South is the weakest division in the league
Mm,
anymore because you
mm,
now have the NFC West.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I agree
Oof,
with this too. I mean,
yeah.
everybody that I'm seeing is giving the Bears an A. on all of it because
Yeah,
they they knew what their weaknesses were and they went out and got it.
they addressed it.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
you can't. My other good was, and I don't normally like giving props to a cowboy, but I'm only saying it because he's leaving.
I don't know what happened. Tina's no longer on the show. I don't know if she was going to say anything nice about Dallas, but I couldn't allow that to happen.
Hey, he's
Had to.
leaving. He's leaving. Why did I think you were going to do that? Rico Dowdle is going to Carolina. He has the
Rico.
chance to earn up to $6.5 million in
I like
incentives and base. So he's being given a chance to show that he can do what he did there
Yeah.
at Carolina. And he was on my fantasy football team, and he actually did me a little. He did me some good. So
hmm
you can't So I'm sorry. I know I say the word cowboy, and you're like, unless it's Janae.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't
Right.
think you can yank your co-star off that
Uh-uh.
one.
'Cause, she has access to the keyboard to the
Right.
to the
She can put
StreamYard.
herself
She can
back
get me
in.
on. Right, right. No, yeah, that was a surprising move by Dallas, letting him walk. But well, we see what they've done since then. But I think to your point, this was a great move by
Nothing.
Carolina. Yeah, well, except for getting your boy Javonte Daggone Williams. I'm so upset about that. So upset about that. But
Only
Rico,
because
like
he's
you
now
said,
a cowboy, are you saying?
yeah, yes, yeah, 100%. I mean, Tar Heel faithful. All right, it's hard for me. This is very hard for me. But I can see.
People
I can
of
also see him.
breaking news, let's talk football. I cannot tell you the number of times Sean was either chirping in my ear or in a thread on Messenger about Javonte.
Yes, yes, my guy, my guy. All right.
So, all right.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens with Rico. We'll see what happens. Another one of my goods. I gotta say the Buccaneers. Hassan Reddick, getting Hassan Reddick and helping their defense out. They were in the playoffs last year. Their defense, they still hold on. They still hold it together. This isn't the defense from a couple years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, but I think getting this piece on their defense is going to help them like crazy. Wait a minute. Ben said, "Careful. Some of the former Cowboys are what?" Yes, that is true. Washington Commander boy. Oh, sounds like a dirty Woo title. I actually saw that. Yes, yes, yes. The
Is that a
Washington
Porky's
Commando.
reference? I think so.
Yes, I can dig it, man. I can dig it and love the Reddick signing. Yeah, that's definitely a good. Do you have any more goods?
No, I mean Denver picking up
I
and
was about to say.
solidifying even harder our defense.
Right, right.
Greenlaw and Huanga, those guys, yeah. But I talked about that last week. So, and on the Blitz. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I I think we deserve an A. That's just my opinion. Other
Oh,
people
absolutely.
disagree.
Well, hey, I like the moves, and I think you guys definitely solidified some things in the draft. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
So, one other thing, just good. I do want to say the Buffalo Bills. They're one game away from the Super Bowl. We all know about. A lot of people said their windows are closing for them to get Bosa. And
Mhm.
I know you love that because he's outside of your division. And then you also extend your quarterback. You got your guys. A lot of people said, well, they
Mhm.
didn't really do anything major at wide receiver, but I don't have a problem with
You're one game away from the
Sheer.
Super Bowl. I don't think
Right.
you need to tweak too much.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the
Well,
moves.
unless your team is, and I'll allude to your later ugly, unless your team was built to win a Super Bowl in 2 years and you didn't get there.
So hey, I think this was good but we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, I like this move. All right, Tina, what's next?
We're going to talk about the bad. And
Mm.
before I lead into the bad, I'm going to admit I did bad. Aaron Rodgers did not have an ACL injury. He had an Achilles tendon injury.
Oh,
So,
Achilles.
whoops.
Rewind. Yeah,
That man can make my head turn and get me to talk
yeah.
stupid. So like, cause I don't get him. I just
Damn
don't
you,
get him.
Aaron. Yeah.
So, all right. So the bad. My bad is, and you kind of talked about it, and I'm glad you brought it up, is I don't understand Seattle with Cooper Cup.
Hmm.
Like Sam Darnold, maybe you know what, if you maybe now that I think about it a little bit, Cooper with Sam Darnold, you're giving Darnold um, a an experienced person to throw to. You've got a
Very true.
veteran there. You're not,
Very
it's not
true.
going to be filled with all of these draftees or guys that they're getting out of the bottom of the pile and everything. Because at this point, all the really good wide receivers and tight ends are gone. You
Mm,
have to see what you can get in the draft and then see what you can pick up after the draft. But
mm,
Cup isn't 6'4", 250-pound receiver. He's been injured.
all
He's shown that
mhm.
it's been hard for him to stay healthy, and I'm afraid in that situation that what's going to happen. The defenses are going to tee in on him on everything, and he's one bad hit away from being injured. So I just don't get it. But let's see what they do. I mean, they're another team that has done a lot with little. So
Mhm. We'll
maybe
see. They're definitely a defensive minded and running team with,
yeah,
I think Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker and those guys.
right.
And we know the old defensive coordinator for the Ravens, I believe, Mike McDonald, is their
Mhm.
head coach. So, they're definitely focused on the defense. Maybe they just need a game manager, a quarterback with Darnold, and
Still
you
gotta
know,
score points.
unless your defense can hold people from scoring points, and they're already in a terrible division. So
You really think they're gonna be able to hold the Rams down with what the Rams have?
all they got to do,
No.
all they got to do is win. If you win 4 games, meaning 2 games against Arizona and 2 games against San Fran, 4-2 still could win you the division unless they win all their games in the division. I
Yeah.
mean, and the thing about it is, as well as I do, that these divisional games always hit different. You have teams that are terrible that play in the division, a la the Cowboys this year, and they can still beat some of the
A la
good teams.
Geno Smith. For some reason, when he played
Gino
against
dominated.
divisions, he just hit a different gear.
He did.
So,
He did. And how much was that? How much of that was, the guys he had before with the Pete Carrolls? How much of that was, all this? So it's going to be interesting to see kind of
mhm.
how it plays out. Um, the bad for me, the 49ers cleaning house. And thank you, Ben. I don't know why I just put this up, but that is exactly what my bad was. You know, Given Purdy, top 5 type contract, and you lose Hafanga, you lose Greenlaw, both to you guys, you lose Debo to Washington. They released Juszczyk, but then right after we reported that last week, they re-signed Juszczyk. But still, you really haven't addressed any moves. You got Brandon Ayuk coming off that ACL injury. You know, it doesn't. I mean, who knows? The draft, maybe they make a killing in the draft. We don't know. But at this point, it looks like they really have not done anything positive to address their team this off season, at least that I've seen. And so, Ben, I'm right there with you. And Tina, you
Mhm.
you mentioned it
I
last week.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had to let all these people go. Their
Mhm.
team was built to be in the Super Bowl, to go to the Super Bowl, and they didn't make it the last 2 years. And we kind of
Yeah.
referenced it last year. Like you talk about Ayuk, and is Christian McCaffrey even the player he was last year? Because
Mm.
I said it, like he's going to foreign countries and getting surgeries and stuff
Hmm.
because he's trying to. So I think they're rebuilding. 49ers are in a rebuilding mode, and I think they just embraced it and decided to
Yeah.
say, okay, now I think they'll still be competitive in their division and in
Mhm.
games because that defense is still pretty good. They just
Yeah.
lost some
Major
people
piece.
that made their team a little bit extra special. So
Yeah.
they spread
Oh
the
yeah.
sauce to other people.
Oh yeah. And we got to remember, this is a team that over the last 4 years has been I believe the last maybe 5 or 6 years, they've been in 2 Super Bowls. They've been
Mhm.
in 3 AFC NFC championships. These guys have been solid, legit over the last couple of years. So we all talk about the window. It's always closing, and
Mhm.
it just might be that time for them. You know, they
Yeah.
had a great run, but even their architect for that run, one of the guys that drafted a lot of those guys, Adam Peters, is in Washington. So he's
Mhm.
starting to do those things in Washington, and it just shows how much of a deal, how big of a deal it is to have somebody in house, getting the right people in, and making these contracts that are team friendly and advantageous to you going down the line.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
we'll see.
Yep.
What else you got?
All right. That's it. So I say we move to the ugly.
Mm, mm, the
Why don't you
ugly.
start off with the ugly?
The Cowboys. They're just ugly. Period. They're just ugly. Hear that,
It'd be
Janae?
like me, that's like
Ugly.
me saying the Raiders. Ugly. They're
Right,
just
right.
ugly.
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 Ugly. Oh, we're talking about the moves they made. Oh, okay. I just thought we were talking about how they look. They're ugly. All right. No, for me, the ugly is the Jags. It's another team that I feel like hasn't really done anything. They
They
went and
are
signed.
wasting Trevor.
Yeah, yes, they're definitely wasting sunshine for sure. They signed Eric Murray to a 3 year, $22.5 million contract. Guys, a safety, barely plays, not really that great. They signed Robert Hainsley, who wasn't a starter, to a 3 year, 20 some odd $1 million contract to the line. Like, they're not doing anything to really benefit the squad. Now, I believe they got no, Christian Kirk traded from them. He went to Houston. So I mean, they're like losing pieces left and right. And
They've
we all talk
re-signed a
about,
couple of good pieces on their
yeah,
defense, but I mean, they traded Ingram to us.
that's another
Like
huge one.
that's a
Right.
guy that's a multifunctional kind of player. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he's not what he was when he was younger, but that's what tight ends take to a number. They take time to
Right.
marinate and figure out what's going on and what their position really is. But yeah, I agree with you. Jags, I don't know what they're doing. I guess they're rebuilding too.
Hmm.
Or Khan lost some money. He's decided he's not paying paid.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
Oh
this
yeah,
one too.
Browns.
I think we can all agree
Um,
on that.
yeah, I was trying not to pick the obvious ones because Browns is one of the obvious ones. Same
Yeah.
with me, the Raiders. I mean, I know they made some moves, but I still don't understand trading away every experienced cornerback you have.
Hmm.
And like, how are you going to defend against wide receivers in the AFC West if you don't have experienced cornerbacks? But anyways, mine is Houston.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
They made some moves. They re-signed a couple of guys. They got a couple of guys in, but all of their moves were on the defense.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, you need Stingley. You need to re-sign
Hmm.
Stingley. So I
Hmm.
understand that. But the problems Houston had last year was on their offensive line.
Hmm.
And they didn't do anything. Well, they
Mm-mm.
got one guy
Yeah.
who is kind of, I would say, a second tier. Like,
Hmm.
he's not somebody that's really well known. And Stroud he took a beating. He took
Hmm.
the sophomore slump.
Hmm.
And I just don't know why they didn't do something on the offense to make that a little bit better for him.
Hmm.
It it's just, to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Like,
Especially after they make the trade with us to give us
mhm,
their best left tackle. And to your point, like you cannot expect to go in the draft and get somebody that is an experienced veteran. You know, maybe you can get a guy that's really high up on the list, but he's not going to be that experienced vet that you have there. And the fact that they have not addressed that, that's a big question mark for me when
or
I'm
what
looking
you
at
end
this.
up doing is the guy that's next to him, that is the veteran, ends
Goes
up
him.
really having to play two positions
Right. Right.
because they've got to cover for the rookie who hasn't always seen the coverages and stuff. That kind of happened a little bit with us when we had our center was out and we had a guard and a tackle that was out. So you have the rookie that is okay, but they need a lot of guidance. And so the guy
Yep.
next to him feels like he has to play that position too. So,
Overcompensate. Yep.
yep, to
Yeah.
compensate for it. It's not a huge one. I mean, other than that, they're fine, but they were one and done too in the playoffs. They squeaked in. So the only reason they made it is because they won their division. That's it. And you didn't fix your problems. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
No. Wait. Who'd they play in the first round? They beat they beat San Diego. Yeah. They lost to
I'm sorry.
Who did they lose to? They lose to the Chiefs?
I should have known that considering it was our division rivals.
Oh. And they lost to the Chiefs in the second round. Yeah, and he was what's his name was on his back. Yes, yeah. That's when that defense showed up like crazy. Karlaftis and Jones and all them boys. Yeah, because what's his name? CJ Stroud he stayed on his back. He was getting hit every other play.
And that's that line. I mean, that's that line, and it showed up at the wrong time for them. So, okay, I have one last thing. So, here's mine.
It's my same one.
Situation that I call it's good, it's bad, and it's ugly. And we referred to it earlier is the Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers show for QB. Like, it's great because they have options, but it's bad because the options aren't great for the teams. Right. And then the ugly part of it is you got Aaron playing circus games and Russell's trying, he wants what he should be paid, and he's not going to get that kind of money. So like, it's just this.
Yeah.
It's the merry-go-round going around, and like all the good horses are broken. So you got to sit in the swan seat or the 2-person seat, and it's like two guys in the love seat. Like, it's not good. Just let me off.
It's uncomfortable, right? It's like, I'll walk.
Like,
but yeah, to your point, you're absolutely right. You have a situation where you have one quarterback that at least won games for you, that at least has some kind of chemistry, that you're kind of like, you can go look elsewhere if you want to. And you have another one you're looking at like, hey, we want you, but he's like, I'm 50-50. I could retire before playing with you guys. Now it's kind of, you're sitting here at, as a Steelers, like, you have 2 quarterback options, but you don't have any quarterbacks because you're very close to starting with a Mason Rudolph this coming year, and I don't think you want to do that. So I agree. I don't see the good in it because you still have 2 quarterbacks over, 35, and both trying to make over $35 million a year. Hey, that's bad. That's ugly. That's deplorable.
So many injuries in the past 3 years. How many teams have they played for?
Come on, man.
Yeah, like
somebody ugly.
I still can't believe Ciara hasn't told him to just stop.
I think that's why he's playing, because Ciara's making money, and he's like, you need to hold up your end of the bargain. That's why Kelsey's still playing. Because Taylor's like, well, once you retire, where's your money going to come from? Because I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, she is a girl. They are girl bosses. So
come on. Yep. I don't think they want somebody just to sit at home and be the homebody. They need somebody on that same level.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, will be interesting. All right. Well, that's the segment of Mile High Minute. Took about as long as the Mile High Minute does too, because it's never a minute.
Right. I love it. All right, we're gonna do a quick breather, and then we're gonna hit you with some commercials real quick before we head out of here. Shout out to my guy, Anton Benton, Austin Artisans. We'll be right back. Yeah, buddy, that's my guy, Anton Benton, creator and of Awesome Artisans on Instagram, awesome_artisans. Definitely tune in to what he's got going on. He does great work. He travels. He lives in the Virginia Beach area at the moment, but he will travel up and down the East Coast and even goes to the Midwest. So if you need some stuff done, get in touch with him and see what he can help you with. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Let's Talk More Breaking News. Your boy Sean Spencer, my amazing co-host Tina Winter. Puka, puka, puka. Yeah, yeah. And we got one more segment for you, real quick. Something we talked a little bit about before, and we're gonna talk about it again. Proposed rule changes. And Tina, you had an interesting one that Detroit came up with, and I'm eager to talk about this. So, what do you got for us first, Tina?
So they want to change a little, they want to change a bit of the playoff format. So what they want to do is, as we all know, like currently you win your division, you're one of the top 4 seeds in the division, and then the bottom 3 seeds are seeded, and everybody, then the wild cards come in. Well, what they want to do is if a wild card has a better record than one of the division champs, they could be seated above them.
Hmm.
So you wouldn't have the 4 at the top and the 3 wild cards at the bottom and playing for their life. So if you're in a weak division and you win 8-8 and the wild card has a 10-8 record,
ain't gonna help.
You're now playing, you don't have home field, you're not playing at home, possibly. There's all kinds of ramifications from this one. I don't like it. That's the point of winning your division, is so you don't have to play, or if you have to play in wild card week because you're 4 or 3, you're bringing them to you, and you're making the wild card have to beat you at home.
Yeah,
that's the point of it. I don't get it.
Yeah. Now, look,
you and I kind of talked about this. One, I don't know why Detroit's bringing it up. I personally think somebody at Detroit was listening to Minnesota bitch about the fact that they haven't won a playoff game even when they've been seeded in. So somebody was listening. Like, I guess the point some people have said is like, well, if you're in a really tough division, such as NFC Central and like the AFC West, where you have 3 teams that are seeded into the playoffs, it creates a situation where you're the 3rd team, but you have a better record than the person that's above you, and so you're losing out.
Right. Right.
But that's not what wild card is for. Wild card is because you've done well at the end and you're sneaking in at the end and you're trying to use a wild card to get yourself to go through that. So I'll stop. What's your feelings?
So I sent you what I read up on. It would have changed a couple of games this postseason.
It wouldn't have changed the AFC West. The AFC side was fine.
Just the one in the AFC. Instead of the Texans hosting the Chargers, the Chargers would have hosted the Texans just because there was a 1 game difference.
I don't think that would have been a big difference in that game.
I don't think the Chargers would have been able. They didn't play well in that game at all. As far as in the NFC side, the Rams would have traveled to Philly in the first week in the wild card weekend. Actually, no, they wouldn't have, because Philly was the number 1 seed, and the number 1 seed in each division still stays the number 1 seed. So they probably still would have had a bye week. But we would have hosted Green Bay because we had the better record, and then Minnesota would have hosted Tampa, if I'm not mistaken, because Minnesota would have had a better record. So you have a couple home and aways that are different, but at the end of the day, you still got to play the game. You still got to win the game. And that, like to your point about the Chargers one, I don't think that makes a difference. For me, I agree with your point about, if you win your division, yes, you should be up there. But then there's also that side. It's like Washington has benefited from this. We won the division in 2020. We were 7-9. We
Yeah.
ended up playing the eventual Super Bowl champs, who I believe were 10 or 11 win team. Um, and we ended up losing, but it was still like there was no way we should have been a higher seed. We came into
Mhm.
that as a fourth seed, and we had won one game in the last four or something like that, and they put us higher than Tampa. That was Tom Brady's Super Bowl year. So I I liked the division.
Mathematically, it's not going to happen that often, too. Because
Well,
let's
that's
think
the
about it.
thing.
What's the likelihood that you're going to have with a wild card that's going to come in and have a better record than the number one seed, than a division seed, a division
Mm,
winner? And it's going to be because you have a really deep division
right,
versus a weaker division.
right.
So that's it just to me smacks a little bit of sour grapes on behalf of Minnesota. They
Mm.
had the opportunities and they just couldn't beat the playoff team. And
Right. And
so
they've done this. They've done this multiple times. Let's not forget Kirk
yeah.
Cousins was there a couple years ago, and they went like 14-2 or something, and then lose to the Giants in the opening round of the playoffs. Like so, at the end of the day, you have to win the game regardless. It doesn't matter where you are. I understand how it could help teams this way, and that, but if we
But
don't
how does
reward a team
Detroit
for division,
benefit from this? Would Detroit have been Detroit would have been the first.
they would have been a buy. They don't they it the reason why it's shocking that Detroit brought this up is because they would have had a buy and nothing changes. No. Who had the first round buy? Was it? Yeah, it was Detroit because they had the bye week.
Yeah.
Philly had to play the first week. They played Green
Mhm.
Bay. So yeah, Detroit would not have really. They wouldn't have been affected by this at all. But
Mhm.
had Detroit lost in that last game, because I think they played Minnesota in like the last game for
Yeah, that
that
might have been
seed.
true.
Had they lost, then they would have been potentially hosting it. So maybe this is something they're doing for future.
But they
You
still
know,
had a really good record, so even if they were in second place or
they
if
wouldn't have
Green Bay
fallen that far. Right.
no.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it is, because if they had lost that game, I think they would have fallen below the Packers, and
Mm.
so then they would have been in the wild card with a better record than people that were up in the
Yeah.
division winners. That's
Because
the
that's what
reason
happened.
why.
Yeah, that's what happened to Minnesota. Because Minnesota
Yeah.
had a far better record than who they played. Um,
But they lost.
yeah, who was it? The Rams? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why at the end of the day you have to win the game regardless. So I get where you want to move the seeding and how you want to play that, and with how that looked, Washington would have had a home game against the Packers, which I feel like we could have won that game fairly easily. But
Right.
hindsight's 2020, we won against Tampa.
Yeah.
So
But if you're going to start seeding people according to their record, it's not a wild card anymore. What it
mm,
is happening is these wild cards are getting hot at the end of the season. They finally put stuff together. They might have been injured earlier. Now at the end of the season, they're getting really hot and they're going in and they're beating the crap out of the
mm,
home team. And the home
yeah.
teams don't like it.
Well, and that's the thing. The seeding is
You know, if
that's
you're
the
going to
whole
do it
thing.
this
It's
way and you're going to
funny.
have 7 teams, just randomly, like the only person that do it the same way that you do it all the time, the first round, the number one seed gets the
Hmm.
bye, and
Hmm.
the rest of them you just throw in a pot. And it doesn't have to be 2 against 7 and 3 against that thing.
Yeah, but that's how they do it everywhere. Like, if we're gonna talk about seeding
That's why
here, then
I
we have to
like
talk
the
about it in
football
like March
wild
Madness.
card. That's
Yeah,
why
I
I
love
like
see
the
that.
wild card.
Well, and because you have teams that will win that wild card
Yeah,
game, and that is less than, and they will move on. And it's the same thing. We have March Madness going on right now. A
yeah.
lot of times, people are looking at these lower seeds, like, how did they make it in? And then all of a sudden, they upset, and they're like, oh, they belong there. So the seedings get
Because their
interesting.
team is better than their record.
Well, yeah, right. And it's, to your point, it's when these teams are getting hot. So I mean, teams are going to always have some kind of complaint,
Mhm.
especially teams that are losing. And regardless if it was Minnesota or Detroit, they both lost in their first game in the playoffs this year.
Mhm.
Who did Detroit lose to? This guy.
To a wild
So
card team.
right, to a wild card squad. So it's going to be an issue regardless. It's never going to make
Mhm.
everybody happy. Um, I personally,
And this is
I
even
like.
me as a person who came in as a wild card. Like, I no, we wouldn't have switched, but
You would
we
still go
might
on the
have
bus.
gotten a different player. We might have gotten a different team that we would have to play against. It might not have
Mm.
been the Bills.
No, but nothing
So,
switched in the AFC, right? I don't think anything
um,
would have switched outside of the Chargers
that's what I'm
Texans.
saying. It wouldn't have
Yeah,
switched, but here I was
yeah.
coming in as a wild card team, and we had a better record than a couple of people. So if things had worked out our way, but I don't agree with it. Wild card is wild card. Get in
Mm.
there, defend your turf, win your game, and it doesn't matter that you had a low, or it doesn't matter that you had a better record than somebody that was above you or the wild card. Just
Yeah.
win games. That's all you got to
If
do.
they
If you
if they
win
want
your
to change
division, you
something,
don't have an issue.
well, that's what it is. That's what it is right now. I mean, if they want to change something, maybe they make the wild card a neutral site or something like that. If you want to take away, well, I mean, I don't understand the proposal by why Detroit's proposing this. Number one, but number two, it's kind of like we're arguing over like semantics. Like if a team has, yes, they have more wins here, but we've seen the teams with more wins and have the home field or whatever and still lose. So at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, it comes down to you have to play that game. Like you
Yeah.
can't do if you got guys that are injured at that week, that's gonna hurt. If you got guys that go cold, that's gonna these things happen. So I think we're just going back
Yeah, and
and
if
forth
your
over where they
win-loss record is the only thing that matters when you get to the playoffs, then it should be ranked. Simple. And it should be ranked
and we're
choice.
not gonna
The
do that.
top 7, that's just the whole point. Was like they started doing the wild card when they added more teams when
Mm,
they expanded. So they were trying to get more teams involved.
mm.
And maybe they've grown out of this format and they might try something new. I mean, this is just a proposal. Who knows what they might actually come up with? They might
Hmm.
come up with something else and fix a few things. So,
Well,
um,
that's where we're gonna have to see coming down the line. Who's gonna? Because it always seems to happen with the team that lost the
they
previous
should have
year.
won and lost.
In their mind, they should have won. Who knows what would happen? Look, let's go from here to that. The
Yeah.
new overtime rules proposed by Philadelphia was a rule that was actually implemented after that amazing Chiefs Buffalo game that went back and forth in the last minute to like 4 touchdowns were scored. That the
Mhm.
Chiefs ended up winning. Buffalo then proposed that rule that said that each team needs an opportunity to have the ball in offense. And this rule was just dedicated to the playoffs. Now
Mhm.
what Philly is trying to do is get that rule to be also in the regular season, which would mean each team will get a possession. And so the rules as they stand now, you get coin toss. The first team, if they score a touchdown, that's it, game over. If they get a field goal, the other team gets the opportunity to come back. That's what the rules are as now. What they want to change it to is regardless, both teams get the opportunity to have the ball in overtime. Personally, again, this is another one of those things where it's like you got to stop them. I don't in the playoffs. That's fine. I didn't necessarily like it when they did that because it wasn't like you were coming back and you tied it up and then you had a chance. Like you were back forth, back forth. Like you're not always going to get that extra time. That's why the clock is what the clock is. So for
Mhm.
me, they're going to keep in the playoffs. That's fine. You do it in the regular season. We talked about in baseball how they had the pitch clock that's shortening the games. All this is going to do is stretch games out. And now you're
Mhm.
going to have games that are, playing, you know, 3, 4, 5, more minutes, 30 more minutes, hour long, which I love. Give me more football. But at the same time, nah. If this overtime, at this point, let's just let it get, whoever gets the touchdown or whatever, end it. It's over. So, what do you think about this new proposed rule?
Eh.
Yeah.
I mean, I see their point,
Yeah.
but here's my issue: is as someone who was up till 3 o'clock in the morning
Yep.
watching NIU play Wyoming in a 5 overtime game.
Hmm.
No, I get it. Playoffs, yes, I get the other team needs the opportunity to score because if you don't score, you're going to lose anyways. So I get it. During the season, no, I
Yeah.
don't see the point. Get the ball and score.
Yeah. Period. We're on the same page on that one.
It's
That's
like
going to be
playing
interesting.
tiddlywinks. Everybody's complaining that the kickoff return rule is ruining football and
Mhm.
all these new rules are ruining football and we just need to go back to the way things were. It's like, no,
Not
no, we
no,
don't.
not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I mean, if
And
you're
that
going to make it so both teams have a chance to score, you might as well start allowing ties.
right. Well, and then that also opens the door to all right. Well, let's just have it where if you get to overtime, it's just like in basketball. Whoever after the overtime period scores the most points, then that's the winner. It's just like a what's it called? A third, like a not a sudden death, but actually another quarter, a fifth quarter that you allow them to play. Because apparently that's where we're going. Because I'm with you. If it gets to the end of the 15-minute quarter or whatever, and nobody scored, done in the regular
Yeah.
season. Can't do that in the playoffs. I get that.
No.
But in the regular season, yeah, absolutely. Let it be done. There's going to be ties. Let them happen. This whole back and forth. Oh, you get it, but you get it. No, because it's not going to stop. Because whoever
Mm-mm.
didn't get that extra touchdown and the playoffs or the regular season is going to cry next year. I want us to have two possessions in overtime. No, you don't
Mm-hmm.
get that. You should have won it in
Right.
regulation. You couldn't. Now you win in overtime. You couldn't. Now you lost or you tied. Period. Sorry,
But that's what's
can't
going to
help you.
happen. So they score, you score. They score again, you score again. They
Yeah,
get to score again, you score. And then you're, like you said, you're tacking on time.
yeah,
And I mean, the reason why they put in the clock and they made the baseball shorter was because of scheduling for the sporting events on television. This is just going to make it even longer. They were shortening stuff because
exactly.
remember when instant replay came out and everybody's like, oh, it's going to make the game so much longer. This is going to make the game so much longer. So
Exactly.
now I want to see my game. And because Joe Schmo, who is ahead of me, who's two teams I don't give a rat's butt about, are now going
Absolutely.
into overtime. And now they're there for 15 minutes. And now it's cutting into my game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
And
if
that's
you
how I
have
mean that's how I feel.
if you have NFL Network and you have all of those and you have DirecTV and you have the NFL Sunday Ticket, you don't really care because you can just switch your game. But
Yeah.
on actual like CBS and Fox, that's going to be an issue
Oh yeah.
because they're going to want to stay with that game and go to the others. Well,
Right.
unless it's the Broncos game and they turn it off.
Well, that was my point. If you're at a bar that doesn't have any of those things that are high, they're
Yeah.
very expensive, then
Yeah.
you're at the mercy of whatever they play, and that's the part. That's the thing that stinks about this is because
Yeah.
when the game goes over, now all of a sudden I'm subject to whatever that station wants to do, whether they
Mm-hmm.
want to stay if it's
Or if
my
they
game
want to
that's great,
switch.
or if they want to switch. Right. So that's where it's going to be an issue. And at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, these are all proposed rules. These aren't
Right.
rules that have
Mm-hmm.
fully gone and locked in stone or whatever. But this is something that's interesting. There's another one that we'll talk about not today, but a little bit later, talking about the scouting reports of teams that are potentially going into the playoffs or the last couple of weeks, and in the wild card, there's rules that we Tina and I talk about often about the roughing the passer. We're going to see what's happening with that, the new first down line. There's a lot of rules that are being proposed at this point. Does not mean that they are final, but we definitely wanted to touch on them to see what our thoughts were about them. So let us know what your thoughts are. New overtime rules and the new potential playoff format. Should be interesting. Should be very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
It'll be interesting to see who they can actually get on their side because, again, remember, they got to get 75% of the team. Actually, you know what? I think no, I take that back with rule changes. They got to get all the teams to agree to it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's going to be the fun part.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see because there's gonna be teams like, nah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
We know
no,
the Chiefs ain't feeling it, so
no.
you know we'll see how that
Well,
plays
they'll
out.
feel it until they start to fall down, and then they're the wild card team. Then they'll have a different answer.
Will that be this year? Will it finally
No,
be this year? Well, yeah, there you go. So
yeah,
they'll be
this year I think they're still going to be the first seed. it's going to be the ones at the bottom that are going to be really. But I will say this: I do think all three teams have the potential to take at least one game from the Chiefs. And
can I get at least 3 teams from the AFC West in the playoffs?
We could see it again. I think we could.
You had it this year, right? Yeah, Chargers, Broncos, and Chiefs.
Yeah.
Only team wasn't in was the Raiders.
Yeah,
the Raiders. This year they're coming back. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it alone. Ladies and gentlemen,
I am going.
Hey, both of us are
begin to explain what I will do to you.
Both of us are talking about sophomore slumps, so we're in the same boat. All right, but you've already messed with me sending Javonte to the daggone Cowboys, so you owe me one. All right.
I didn't do it personally.
It's like when I talked to Handy about all his Georgia boys kicking my team butt. He's like, I didn't do it. It's your team.
Off.
You're right. You're right. Oh, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are heading out of here. We appreciate you guys sticking with us, joining us, talking to us about a little bit of football. This has been Let's Talk Football breaking news, and we will definitely be back with you next week. So, for my partner, Tina Winter, thank you, Tina. It is your boy, Sean Spencer. So glad you can join us, and we'll see y'all next time. Hey, take care. Watch some basketball. Draft's coming up. Let's Talk Football, the draft show, will be coming at the end of next month for that first round of the draft. Stay tuned. We will be having Let's Talk Football, Washington Football Weekly, maybe Mile High Minute.
Solo Mile High.
Ladies Take Over, the college show. All the shows are going to come together, different pieces and parts of that night, so that we can come on, talk about it, talk about our picks, what happens next, and all that good stuff. So tune into that. It's going to be fun. But we're out of here, ladies and gentlemen. We will see y'all next time. Peace.
Washington had no hesitation in this offseason. They hired Bob Myers, a special consultant